Good afternoon. I'd like to open this meeting up Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. If you'll stay with me, so the mayor can do the invocation and the pledge.
Please bow with me. Lord, thank you once again for the wonderful city that we live in. Thank you for the staff that keeps it going and keeps it on top and everything they do. We again tonight get to honor one of our first responders, our protector for our city, who's been with the city for a very long time, and he's done a great job. Yeah, will not make it tonight, but we get to honor him anyway. We ask that you watch over all of our first responders that maintain orderly conduct in the city, take care of the city, take care of us all. We ask that all we do in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Kathy, will you call the roll?
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Bishop.
Here.
Havery.
Here.
Mendel.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here. First of all, I want to say happy birthday to our attorney today. It's his birthday. If you want to, we can sing to him.
Happy birthday to you.
And now, if you have any, if you're not on the agenda and you want to speak to us, we have some papers up front. You fill them out, and we'll call you up at a time for people from the audience. Mayor's report.
All right, I did announce that we do have another retiring police officer, Rick Little, who began his career in 1996. So he's not a newbie. He's been around for a while, but Rick's done a good job. He's been here. He is not here tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and read his proclamation. It's whereas Rick Little began his career with the Sebring Police Department as a part-time police officer in June 1996 and was hired as a full-time officer in June 2007. Whereas Rick Little has served the citizens of the city of Sebring and his department for over 27 years with honor and distinction, and whereas Rick Little is retiring from his position as police sergeant in October 2023. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor, city clerk, and members of the city council of the city of Sebring do hereby convey their sincere appreciation for the years of dedicated public service and rendered to the city and its citizens. So thank you, Rick. If you would just pass it on for us, Carl. And the second piece, Carl, you want to present this, or you want me to present the?
Since he's not here, we'll just do the approval, or we'll present a retirement.
Okay. We are, I'm going to go ahead and read this, the approval.
Go ahead.
This is pretty standard for retiring police officers. We request to present Rick Little with a uniform, badge, service handgun, and retired officer identification card. I'll read this and appreciate the background and appreciation of Sergeant Rick Little's 27 years of service, 11 years part-time, 16 years full-time to the citizens of Sebring, and the department would like to present him with a uniform, badge, service handgun, and retired officer identification card in accordance with Florida Statute 112.193. As the weapon is currently in the Sebring Police Department's inventory, council will need to declare the service handgun as surplus and authorize the purchase of a replacement for future issuance. So I need to request a motion to do that.
All right, I'll put forward the motion to approve the request to declare Sergeant Rick Little's service handgun as surplus so that it may be presented to him with a uniform, badge, and retired officer identification card, and authorize the purchase of a replacement service handgun for future issuance.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, a second. Any discussion? Kathy?
Bishop.
Yes.
Havery.
Yes.
Mendel.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, consent agenda. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda. Never mind.
I'm going to say you're jumping ahead there.
Yeah, I'm pulling a quickie. Councilman's concerns, comments, and liaison. Maybe I didn't want to hear them.
Good evening. Happy birthday, Bob Swain.
Thank you,
We
ma'am.
love and appreciate you. And because we do, we are not going to sing to you. This past Tuesday, I believe it was, the county put on a homeless workshop, and it was very, very excellent. And I really strongly recommend that they do that again so we can have good networking with all our different agencies and people that are inclined and called to help our homeless population. I have personally had a lot to do with homeless people through various ministries in churches and gone to sidewalks and just begged them to get help and addiction and all that. And a lot of our support and understanding needs to go to our agency people who work with these folks, because it's often a thankless job without enough backing financially, and these people that have problems just seem to, it goes on for a long time. It's very difficult. It's very, very touching, and I've seen that firsthand, and we need, as a city, I feel like, to try to put out a helping hand. I'm not sure how exactly. I'm in contact with Shirley Johnson about, she's proposing, and several others, that perhaps we could use a building that's not being used in the city for, I'm not sure what, whether they want it for administration or, I'm not sure, but I'm looking into all that. But I think this is a problem that we've had for years, and it's across our country, but it's going to be getting worse. And after hearing Katie from New Testament Mission talk about homeless people being bussed in, you know, I think we really need to see how we can help with this issue. So I personally am going to be working on that.
Okay. Harrison?
Last week I was able to go to the Tobacco Free Partnership meeting, so just a thank you to Jessica Carlson and Laura Andrews for putting that on. It was just a really good experience to learn a lot about the public safety issues going around in our school system. So it was just a really good round table discussion to learn more about what's going on in the schools with the safety aspect with tobacco use. And I guess on a personal note too, I just want to say thanks to Carl and the team, the police department. Somebody stole my motorcycle last week, and they found it already. So, thank you.
Somebody stole it, did you
They
say?
did last Thursday.
What?
The nerve of them people.
Found it at Carl's house, by the way.
Oh, no, we have work to do.
Mr. Bishop?
No report.
I had a planning and zoning meeting last Tuesday, the first one since May, I think, and it was a little contentious. I think they made the right call, but we may have someone coming before council at some point to contest that. Just a heads up. They're doing a good job.
Thank you. I went to the homeless meeting too, and when I left, I had to leave early because I had to do some business. But Shirley, she was walking out behind me, and I asked her a question, and this is a good question. We do have a homeless problem, but my question to her was, where are the families? Where are their families? Why aren't they even trying to
Yeah.
help? And she said that was a good question.
Yeah.
You know, you know, it is bad. So I know everybody was looking and saying, you know, need more government funding, and we're being taxed to death as it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the funds are coming from, but
You know, too, on that note, I don't think any of us want to see a bunch of handouts. You know, that old saying, we want a hand up, not a hand out, you know, to try to get them back on their feet. And I think with the family issue, the ones I've been connected with, the families are so disgusted and have done everything they can do with a lot of them. And also there is an element of mental illness, and there's a certain percentage, I don't know how many, but they just want to live in the woods and be left alone. I think you brought that up one time. So it's a very complicated issue, but I think as a city, we need to have a heart for that, not just making it, it's not an easy life. The people I have been in contact with, it's not an easy life, but to see how to help them, and you know, it is a complicated thing.
yeah, sure is. Okay, now I entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Nice second.
Okay, is there any Any comments?
Just with
And
the-
that includes,
Just second.
Includes
The addition
items
of
A
detail.
through L.
Thank you.
thanks. Okay. And the second is for that? Terry, you're with the add-on.
Yes.
Okay.
Bishop,
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. No old business, so we'll go right to new business. We have 10A is church at the Circle event, request by Rick Fisk. You come up and talk to us, please. Explain to us what you want to do.
We, for about 6 weeks ago, I contacted the city and talked with Scott about just going down at the Circle about 5:30, 6 o'clock on a Sunday evening and spending about an hour down there. We do about 30 minutes of music, praise and worship, short message, reaching out to anybody that needs Jesus, and then asking to pray for anybody that's there. And we've been down there a couple times. We're just a small group right now. We were 8 the first time, and it was 15 the second time. But knowing that as we reach 25 or more, we wanted to make sure we want to be right. We want to have all our ducks in a row, which is why I'm here tonight. I know you have events that go on down there. We don't want to interfere with that. We'd like to have as much freedom down there to do it, only because the weather. I mean, if I said, okay, let's do the third Saturday or third Sunday, and it's raining the third Sunday, then we miss a week. So we're looking for a little latitude as far as weather and stuff goes, and other events. I'll keep an eye on what's going on through the website, and we won't get in anybody's way. We just want to reach out to the community. We're Christ Fellowship Church of Sebring here, and new pastor, and I'm part of that now as well as the worship leader, and we're looking to move that direction. Just reach out to the community, kind of change the atmosphere in the Circle at least once a week.
It's a great idea, great idea. And I've had a lot to do with your church. They've been very supportive of my missionaries in the past, and I
Right.
appreciate your service there. And I think it's a great idea, and just figuring out how to work around other people that might want to meet there. But
Yes.
I really appreciate you bringing Jesus Christ to our Circle there for
Thank you.
people that want to hear it.
Thank you. My wife and I felt led to do this originally. I originally contacted Scott. I hadn't even talked to the pastor yet. We just felt led to do it. And then after speaking with our pastor, they were 100% behind. We're a small church. There's only about 25 of us. So, but we're looking to just reach out to the community any way we can. That way, the first night we were down there for 2 nights. And then last week, we got scared off by the rain. That didn't happen. And but the first night, someone came to the Lord. So,
Praise God.
so we're just looking to reach out to the community and touch and see God change things.
Mr. Fisk, is your intention to do it every Sunday night that's available? Is that what you're asking for?
I would like to do that.
Okay.
I'm at the mercy of you, what you guys will allow us to do.
And you have a PA system?
I have a small PA system that I carry. I literally carry and set up in 20 minutes, 20
Okay.
to 25
So
minutes.
it's like one speaker kind
One
of thing?
speaker
Okay.
with a little stack on it and stuff. And
Okay.
it's not greatly loud. It probably handles the area. It
Okay.
doesn't get much out of there.
That's kind of what I was asking, if
Yeah.
it's, gonna affect all the vendors on the Circle or not. It sounds like no.
I haven't had any feedback against that yet, but like I said, we've only been there twice. So.
Okay.
And are you asking for indefinitely, or 6 months, a year?
Until God changes the direction of it. How's that sound? I don't know. We just feel led to do this, and if things get to where that's not a cohesive thing for the city or for the Circle, I don't think it'll be for the church unless the church goes away, because our hearts driven that direction. I mean, I come from worship leading in Michigan for 25 years, so I don't go back. I don't quit easy. I mean, I'm just, and unless God changes the direction of what we're doing, that's kind of what we want to do. We want to reach out to those. We've seen those sitting down there that are kind of looking lost and kind of maybe even homeless. We just want to be able to reach out to them, share the love of Jesus with them.
Okay. Well, that's what I understand. You just want to be able to use it when someone else is.
Someone else is not, yes.
Like the Christmas lights, when the Christmas lights there, it's.
We can't be there. I understand.
Yeah.
I was talking with Scott, and we understand that you guys have other things going on there. We don't want to interfere with any of that. We just, when it's an open circle on a Sunday evening, we'd like to come down there and just praise and pray.
So where's your church located?
Right behind Aldi's. There's 2 churches on New Life Way. Right behind Aldi's, we're the first one. We're the smaller one.
Thank you.
So I wouldn't have a problem approving this, with the kind of stipulations that if another event is booked, that, obviously they can't be there. But I would feel more comfortable if we put some sort of time frame on it to, like, maybe a trial run, for a few months or something, just to make sure everything's
Yep,
cohesive.
that works for us.
I don't know if we can put in a motion till God moves you otherwise. But
We'd
maybe
have
a
to ask
trial-
him.
Well, you could, I guess what you could do is say, let's try it for 6 months, or 4 months, or 3
Yeah,
months,
I'd be-
and then revisit it after that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
We're going to come into, in a month and a half or so, we're going to start coming into Thanksgiving and the Christmas time, and we know we're not going to be there. So,
Right.
So we just, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so you need some kind of a motion?
Why don't we do 4 months? That gets past Christmas, and we can feel before and after that event.
120 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can reevaluate too. I mean,
Correct.
if your numbers start doubling on that, if it goes from 18, 15 people to 100 people, that might change things up a little bit too.
Yeah.
put a
I don't know
date
how
on
we'd
the
handle that
January.
100 people thing, but yeah,
Yeah,
we
it
were
would be
down there a
easier.
few months ago when there was prayer by the churches gathering together, and that was kind of the first inkling I had. I saw the groups of churches coming together, and I thought, the town I came from in Michigan, we had what they called a Church of Niles, which was 15 churches that were involved and met at different locations there monthly and had services together. So I don't know if anything like that would ever come down here out of that, but who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Just trying to.
I'd be good with that 4-month period.
Well, you
What
wanna
about 6
make-
months?
just
6
through
months,
the-
just
through the end
because
of
there ain't gonna be
January.
much time for the holidays.
Put a date on it, so.
Yeah, why not just through the end of January? That gets them through the holidays, and we can kind of see how it works, and
Okay.
then if everything's good, we could renew that,
Sounds good to us.
So we need a motion?
All right. I'll put forward a motion to approve the ongoing event with the exception of when it is booked otherwise on Sunday evenings for approximately 1 hour through the month of January 2024 with the insurance provided, liability insurance in the amount of $1 million, listing the city as additional insured.
Okay.
Second.
Any comments? Kathy?
Bishop,
Yes.
Avery.
Yes.
Mendel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Appreciate it.
You folks have a good evening.
You too. Okay, moving on, right on 10B, update on the Avon Park Air Force Range Compatible Use Plan. Ms. Jennifer Coda Salisbury. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy birthday to the city attorney. I'm excited to be here tonight just to take the opportunity to give you an update. First, I'm going to turn it over to Buck McLaughlin, the Range Operations Officer at the Avon Park Air Force Range, to give an overview of things going on out there, and then an update on the compatible use plan, of which the city of Sebring is a part. So the best goes first. Turn it over to Buck.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to give you a brief update on Avon Park, particularly in the context of the compatible use plan, which, as Jennifer will get into later, that really ties in back to the joint land use study that we accomplished together in 2010. And that is a document and a study that was designed to look at the community and their development plans, as well as the range, its mission and its predicted future mission, and seek avenues of compatibility to where we're not stepping on either one. So I believe you've got the slides kind of in front of me, or you may be able to see some, partially here. Yeah, that looks better.
Next.
Please. And I'm here today on behalf of our current squadron commander, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Ryan, and just really appreciate the opportunity to give you an update on the range. Slide, please. These are the things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to kind of try to keep it pretty high level. There's going to be a lot of wording on the slides. I won't read every single word. Do I just kind of flip it, or how do I? Oh, got it. Yes. But please feel free if there's any questions as I go through there, or something I don't cover, or something even beyond, not in the slides, that you want to ask about. Really like to update you on the activity going on at the range. Thank you. I'm sorry. Will you go back one, please? And I can click that if that's easier for you. Or, yeah. Oh, perfect. Thank you. You can see our mission statement on the slide, and I really do want to bring your attention to that world-class piece. I'm a retired Air Force officer, flew airplanes for the Air Force most of my career. My last assignment was at Avon Park before being able to take this civilian position. In fact, I worked for Jennifer in the Regional Planning Council doing joint land use study implementation. Thank you. For about a year in between. So I've been with the range since about 2008. And based on my experience, and obviously I'm biased, it really is a world-class facility. And I say that from a perspective of receiving the feedback from the units that come from literally all over the country, to include some of our coalition allies. We've had Canadian F-18s fly down to operate out of MacDill Air Force Base to access Avon Park. And across the board, units tell us that they are able to do things at Avon Park that they cannot do at any other range in the country. And that's because we have a lot of ground space, a lot of airspace. I'll touch on some of that. But really, it's also because of the support of the local community in terms of what we do. We sometimes make a lot of noise and create some vibrations, but it really is cutting-edge training for our warfighters. We're not a test range. We don't develop widgets or weapons or anything. We train our nation's warfighters to do our nation's business. And again, I'm biased, but I think we do it better than any other range in the country, and that's our feedback. I'll touch on some of the details of particularly agile combat employment. That's a new kind of avenue that's bringing a lot of users to the range. It is a range, but we've got support infrastructure out there, as you can see on this slide. One of the big pieces of that is when you tell people that you work at a bombing range, you can see the mental image forming of some kind of barren landscape with craters and no man's land kind of thing. And I'm really proud to, and it's not my doing, it's our environmental flight, really proud to share that it is some of the most pristine natural Florida real estate that you've ever seen, because of our ability to apply fire to the landscape, both through a prescribed fire program through our environmental flight, but literally also due to the ordnance that we drop out there and expend out there that starts wildfires, that burns that range at a rate that nature did in this area before mankind came in and settlements and really put up impediments to fire. So really, this is some pristine natural Florida real estate, and our connection into the Florida Wildlife Corridor and other conservation efforts is a big part of our mission sustainment piece. And Jennifer will touch on some more of that as well. Where we're different than most bases is, and again, more like a range, is we've only got 4 active duty personnel. And that's pretty unusual. More civilians like myself, as you can see on the numbers there, and then our contractors who are really part of that same team that help us maintain the facility, maintain the target sets and the environment, the training venue that we then hand over and let those active duty, guard, reserve units from really all of the services. Air Force pays the bills, so we're called an Air Force range, but we are open to any of the services as well as federal, state, and local agencies that need to do that military-style training or even just practice police training. One of our big activities on certain weekends is police drivers training on one of our closed runways. They can practice that kind of tactical driving out at the range, and it works pretty well. We have some great capability in 106,000 acres on the ground and the associated airspace that goes beyond that. So that gives us an ability to give those users some freedom of maneuver to really train like they fight. And then unusual for a range, we also have a runway out there that's inside of restricted airspace, special use airspace. And that allows the pilots to integrate with the guys on the ground who are either doing convoy training, maneuver training, calling in airstrikes. This is an opportunity for our warfighters to meet face-to-face versus a telephone or virtual debrief and connectivity, and really build that trust in each other's capabilities. And often we have units that come to Avon Park a month, 2 months, maybe even up to 2 weeks prior to deploying in theater, downrange, into combat, if you will. And they build that continuity, they build that trust with folks that they may see in overseas locations in real world combat. And I find that, I think that's just priceless and really part of the service we give them. We also have facilities over at MacDill Air Force Base, and that allows us to really reach beyond not only the state of Florida, but nationwide, where aviation units, squadrons can bring their fighters in, fly into MacDill, operate out of our facilities at a reduced cost, use MacDill's capabilities to access Avon Park. And it really works well from a kind of a snowbird, if you will, perspective that a lot of the northern tier units, as we get into the wintertime, they just don't have the weather to train at home. So they come down here to sunny Florida, much like a lot of the tourists do, and access, use our good weather and access the capabilities at the range. But as you can see on the slide there, we also take care of Homestead Air Reserve Base, F-16 Squadron there is one of our regular customer. Rescue units out of Patrick Air Force Base, and then reaching up north, our parent wing is Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, Georgia, just over the Florida-Georgia line. They bring a lot of assets down here and utilize us. We also have, as you depicted on that picture there, airspace out over the water. So that gives us a capability that I'll touch on a little bit later as we're looking at future missions and operations. This slide, I won't get into all the details other than that, as I use this as an example to say that Big Air Force is investing in Avon Park, particularly in this case using the runway as an example. And we have additional project that's not listed here for about $6 million as we're clearing out some of the trees and things that surround the airfield in order to keep it a safe operating environment for aircraft. But a lot of support for our runway and for the range. And I believe a lot of that, I don't have the exact numbers, but that spills over into the communities. Because anytime we do a contract, that's not our internal contractors who do these kind of construction, maintenance, and repair projects. These projects go to local companies, local providers who go out there and refurbish the asphalt or work on that machine you kind of see in the picture is a barrier arresting machine that actually acts almost like an aircraft carrier cable to stop aircraft in the case of an emergency for us. So again, a lot of capability, a lot of investment into Avon Park from a range perspective. And in large part, that is due to this concept. The ACE stands for Agile Combat Employment. LFE is Large Force Exercises. But Agile Combat Employment is really kind of the thing that our leadership, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, has said, hey, you need to go practice this. And it's based on our adversaries, in particular Russia, although we might be getting some good evidence right now that they may not have been as capable, but certainly our strategic competitor in the People's Republic of China. They have great capability against Air Force and other forces, our fixed bases. They can take out our runways. They have a lot of capability of that. So to counter their capability, we have to have the ability to be agile, as the name implies. We have to be able to operate off of different airfields other than our home Air Force bases. So maybe in a contingency situation operating out of a civilian airfield, or even kind of the old days of the European theater and the Soviet hordes coming across the Fulda Gap scenario, operating off of a highway. We want to practice our ability to service aircraft, bring the logistics in, fuel, rearm, repair, and then launch that firepower, that air power, out of unusual, more agile, smaller, more austere locations than just our fixed bases to counter our adversaries' capabilities. And having a range with a runway inside of special use airspace is the ideal place to practice that. And again, I'm biased, but that's not coming from me. That's coming from leadership that looks at Avon Park Range and says, hey, we can send units here and they can practice like they may need to fight in the future. And as such, we're getting a lot of traffic with that. A lot more activity. You can see some of the bases, Whiteman Air Force Base from Missouri. We recently had a group come from California. Navy and Marine F-18s out of Miramar, California came out here to practice this concept. Part of what we're able to do, and I won't beat this to death, I know I'm talking kind of long, is we've got a lot of infrastructure that's base-like at the range to include dormitories, dining facilities that we kind of keep mothballed and we can just hand over to that unit. So it makes it a lot cheaper for them to come here. If they don't want to stay in our old dorms, because frankly it's not as nice as the Holiday Inn, many of these units will stay downtown, in particularly in your community. So I think that is another way, as a partnership, as a good neighbor, the Avon Park Range contributes to the local economy. But we can bed them down out at the range to operate and train very, very efficiently and really pennies on the dollar to some locations. Once they're there, they get access to the whole 106,000 acres and the associated airspace around that. So we have 2 weapons impact areas where we do most of our training. Kind of tying into that environmental piece earlier, I mentioned that the pink areas up there are where we really do the core part of our military training. And that's roughly about 25,000 acres of that whole 106,000 acres. So we only use a little percentage of that range for the most intense military training. The rest of it is weapons safety and buffer areas to protect that. And that is some of those natural areas that I've talked about. Those are also areas when we're not doing military training that we open to the public. We have a robust hunting program. We manage it in accordance with state wildlife management requirements. Camping, fishing, hiking, it really is, again, it's not that cratered surface of the moon that you might envision. And a lot of the local public really has good things to say, I believe, about our outdoor recreation program. Looking to the future, with Tyndall Air Force Base getting 3 F-35 squadrons in there and Jacksonville Air National Guard squadron getting replacing their F-15C models air-to-air aircraft with F-35s in the future, we see a lot more of that traffic coming to Avon Park. So that's going to increase the noise, and that kind of dovetails into Jennifer's discussion about the compatible use plan of looking how do we accept that new mission and do it safely. I think anybody who's been paying attention in the news, the Marines kind of lost an F-35. You might wonder how that happens, and frankly, we're still finding out information on that. But that's the concept behind that compatible use around the range. High-density residential areas, things like that, where if you, God forbid, were to have a mishap, could turn a really bad situation into a catastrophic situation. If, say, in this case, where that F-35 up in North Carolina went down in a field, had it gone down in an apartment complex or God forbid, a city, it would have been a much different situation in my estimation. So that is what we're really trying to look at. But what we're trying to work through is, as we look to accommodate that mission, Florida is unique in the across the entire United States in that we've got peninsular Florida and we've got tremendous amount of airspace out over the water. Whiskey 168 that our squadron manages and schedules, you see on the slide there, but there's other warning areas in the Gulf. And then on the Atlantic slide, you've got all the Cape Canaveral and other warning areas, special use airspace out there. Really creates an ideal situation to train for these newer aircraft that fly higher, faster, farther apart. Just need physically more space to be able to accommodate that. And Florida offers that to our nation, in my personal estimation, like nowhere else in the country. You really don't have that access where, and it's kind of hard to see on that slide, but there's little lines out there that indicate all the warning areas and other special use airspace that the FAA has designated. And then if you could tie that together on a temporary basis with Avon Park Range, now you can flow from out over the water into Avon Park, do overland stuff, and then flow back out on occasion without too much interruption to commercial air traffic. So really, I think a neat capability and a lot of growth potential for Avon Park. I did talk a little bit, I teased some on that conservation program, and really it is a direct impact to the mission training, because if we don't care for the land as the Department of Defense, we don't get to continue to use it. As a federal agency, we are subject to all the Environmental Protection Act laws that as any other federal agency. So we have to analyze every bit of training that we do out there, and we document what the potential environmental impacts are. And we've got, I believe it is the second largest environmental flight. I know it is the second largest prescribed fire program in the entire Air Force, second to Eglin Air Force Base, obviously also in Florida. And that helps us meet our statutory requirements for caring for the land, caring for threatened and endangered species out there, and again, does our due diligence in being good neighbors to the city of Sebring. I jumped ahead of myself. Again, Jennifer added these slides, so a pretty picture, but this really kind of drives home what I was saying earlier. We burn about a third of the range every year, and that is, again, at a pace that nature did before mankind got in here and put an impediment to fire. Also, we have a world-class archaeologist out there. She does a lot of presentations in the community. If you haven't met her, Kathy Couturier, she's awesome. She's really passionate about that and does a great job of capturing the history out there. That picture depicts a 4,000-year-old dugout canoe that was in the Kissimmee River, and actually got noticed after one of the storms, kind of uncovered from the silt. And one of the fishermen out there noticed it and reported to us. So we worked through that process of managing to get it recovered and sent up to a special facility in Washington, D.C., I believe it is, where they're actively restoring that and trying to preserve that piece of history. Besides the other programs that I mentioned, we do cattle grazing. We also do forestry out there. So we try to get benefit out of every square inch of the property, and a lot of that, again, those are an economic benefit to the local community. All right, I talked a lot. Those extra slides, I'd kind of gotten ahead of myself. Any questions for me? Anything I didn't cover? Anything you had just curious about?
Got a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, this is a training place, but do you also have a standby group that could, in case of a national emergency, fly out, or is it all just training?
In our case, we do not. We do not have any active missions or anything assigned to Avon Park. So there is a small contingent from the Florida Army National Guard out there that maintains a vehicle maintenance facility. So, but in terms of really kind of any local response, troops, anybody prepared for that, no, we don't have anything like that assigned.
Well, of course, those fighter jets and all that are so fast they can get anywhere they need to be. But I just wondered, was just curious about that. What
No,
do you?
I think that's a great question. I will add on to that, though, that we are in a lot of Homeland Defense and FEMA emergency response plans, particularly for a hurricane that hit more in South Florida, Miami area, something like that. Our facilities, particularly with our runway, we would be an excellent staging location for equipment. And I believe it was Hurricane Ian where FEMA brought a lot of supplies and equipment, a lot of trucks with generators on those to kind of pre-position those in order to speed up the response after the storm passes. So we do actively support that.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you for your time. Again, really appreciate that opportunity. I'll hand it back to Jennifer to discuss upcoming opportunities.
Tried to make Buck's presentation more interesting by dropping in slides you had no idea would be there. But you did great. So one of the key missions of our country is to protect, our military mission and our homeland defense. The Florida legislature a few decades ago adopted statutory requirements in Florida statutes regarding compatibility. And for each installation, there are 20 in Florida. For those installations that are part of communities and may impact communities, there's criteria that says in Florida statutes, Avon Park is listed, as are the 7 jurisdictions that may experience impacts from the range, including Sebring, Highlands County, Frostproof, Avon Park, Polk County, Osceola, and Okeechobee, kind of all mixed in. Usually I do that alphabetically. So we have 7 jurisdictions that may be impacted by the range, and that's from a sound. You may hear the jets coming in. The closer that you get, you might feel the ground moving. And also there's the closer you get to the installation, greater accident potential. So public safety is a top priority. Also a top priority is protecting the military mission, and also the state of Florida working to be the most military-friendly state in the country as well. So as we look at future compatibility with the installation, each of the 7 jurisdictions back in 2010 participated in a joint land use study, which is now called a compatible use plan, because most folks were like, what's a JLUIS? What are we talking about? But in each of the comprehensive plans, including Sebring, the comprehensive plans acknowledge the range, and also the jurisdictions closer to the installation have policies that say if we get a development within a certain area of proximity to the range, if we get a development request, we'll invite the Air Force Range to review that proposal and provide comments. And an example of that is when you get within the 3-mile buffer, height becomes important. And there's a 50-foot height limitation. So if you have a cell tower application where someone wants to do a 100-foot tower, there's a variance procedure. And in some instances, it may be workable, maybe in a slightly different location to avoid the flight path. So those are just a few examples of compatibility. Or if you had a new development come in that was a dense residential development, again, wanting to protect the public safety. But a lot of times we'll get questions about what is a compatible use plan. And this screen, the handout in your package, The goal is to protect public safety and promote public safety, continue collaboration and discussion with local governments, with different agencies and landowners, and sustain the military mission. There's nothing in the plan that changes entitlements or changes airspace or anything like that. It's really a document to look at, again, protecting public safety and the military mission. This map shows the military influence planning areas, or MIPAs. We have 7 jurisdictions, and amazingly, planners are creative. So the JLUIS calls them MIPAs, but each jurisdiction has a different name. Highlands County calls them military airport zones, and Polk calls them military compatibility zones. And Sebring, we call them MIPAs. But that pink area around the range is in the green there, that's the 3-mile buffer. And that's where we probably have more of potential for incompatibility. And the purple is MIPA 2, which are also those flights coming in. The yellow, where Sebring is located, are where you will hear activities at the range, but not so much concerned with density or height. As we've looked at this update to the joint land use study, now called the compatibility use plan, we've also looked at, of course, the range sits on the Lake Wales Ridge and is a good steward of the environment, but also looking at the Florida Wildlife Corridor, the act that was passed last year, and the Florida opportunity areas for the corridor. That being said, you'll see this is a map of the 7 jurisdictions and their future land uses. The range is bright green, but you'll see a lot of other green, and that is work with property owners who are interested in wanting to keep working agricultural lands working, and there being the opportunity for voluntary conservation easements, especially really close in that 3-mile buffer or that MIPA 2. This is a zoom in of Highlands County, and Sebring again, it's a touch screen, that's nice. Sebring again is pretty close, but not so close to the range that you're in the 3-mile buffer. And I also wanted to show Avon Park, of course, being our neighbor, but also outside of that 3-mile buffer. And again, this is Sebring, and that line is the MIPA 3 again, which is just letting folks know you may hear the range. Some folks move to the area and don't know that the range even exists. In some cases, it's our best kept secret, and it used to be in the middle of nowhere, and now it is not. That being said, really one of the key goals of the Department of Defense is to let people know the range is there. And we have worked over the years with the Polk County property appraiser. You know, if you go and do some homework on a property you're interested in or that you own, if it is within a military influence planning area, the property appraiser's website will let you know. You are close to a military installation, and call Jennifer with questions. The other item that has come through from that compatible use study done initially is, again, the 50-foot height limit when you get close to the range. We actually do have a landfill in MIPA 1, the Highlands County landfill, but through the years there's been a lot of coordination and really working to reduce any hazards there, and I think that's worked well over time. And then again, the other big item that is in the land development codes of the communities closer to the range is when you're looking at new development requiring light fixtures that promote more of a dark skies setting, and that helps with night training for the pilots flying in. So as we were looking at the update to the compatible use plan, also looking at innovation and working together with communities and the installation, we may have large property owners closer to the range that may be interested in transferring development rights out to a more urban area, creating a win-win there. And again, continuing the efforts, the Range has a Facebook page, which actually is pretty active and helpful in letting folks know things are going on out there. But there are also a number of information brochures, especially available at property appraiser offices, for example, letting folks know that the installation is here and you may hear it. And also there are prescribed burns out there and around the Range, so just continuing public education and information. Also, as part of this process, just continuing, the Florida Department of Transportation always coordinates with the Range if there's going to be any road work activity or proposed new corridors. Again, just continuing that dialogue. And one thing that came about as we were working on the compatible use plan that we're just keeping an eye on is the Live Local Act, which allows high densities in commercial and industrial zoned areas, which normally we would have said, well, industrial, that can be compatible actually in that area because not a lot of people are living there. But this act actually opens it up for residential density. So the planners for these 7 communities certainly are aware of that, and if they receive applications in, will be cognizant of it, especially in MIPAs 1 and 2. And this is just a map of the MIPAs, and really looking, that green that you see on the screen are actually voluntary conservation easements over time. Where the Range is situated, we just have so many key agricultural operations that are vital to our state economy. And the installation has been able to work with voluntary property owners for some win-wins to keep agricultural lands working and to provide voluntary conservation easements. So there are opportunities there through a number of different funding sources, including the Florida Wildlife Corridor Act. So there are several phases of the compatible use study, and we have done a lot of data and analysis looking at growth. Of course, our area is one of the fastest growing areas in the country, and that certainly is a consideration as well. So on Friday, hopefully this has gotten everybody excited, we will have a policy committee meeting at the Range. That's Friday, September 22nd. It's at 10 a.m. There's also a virtual option. Each of the 7 local governments has an elected official appointed to the policy committee, and that used to be Councilman Carlisle and is now Councilwoman Mendel. And we look forward to hopefully seeing folks at the Range, and that is my shameless plug for please come to the Range on Friday. And we're available for any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Jennifer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much. Okay, business from the audience. We have Mr. Pete Pollard, MODA RFP.
Good evening. My name is Pete Pollard. I am a member of the Board of Directors of Highlands Little Theater, aka Highlands Lakeside Theater. And we had a board meeting last night, and we received a copy of the RFP for the old Art League building. We had some questions, so I contacted Scott today. I actually contacted both Kathy and Scott. We had a brief conversation, and Scott did what he's supposed to do and very professionally said, you don't need to ask me this, you need to go and ask the council, so that's why I'm here. The RFP states that someone making a proposal should make a proposal for a 12-month lease or less. And I'm here to ask you to reconsider that. 12 months doesn't really give us any long-term options, any planning for long-term options. If we were to consider putting any money into the building, we'd reconsider it if we only had 12 months with without any, I recognize the fact that we might be able to renew the lease after 12 months, but there's no guarantee that that's the case. So it puts a damper on the possibility of making any major improvements to the building. In the RFP, it also states that the proposers should make a proposal for financial compensation for the lease. We're not quite sure we understand that. Bob, maybe you can explain that to me.
How much you want to pay?
Well, let's see. Let's look at the history. HLT and the Art League signed dollar-a-year leases in 1982. One of the buildings, the one where the Art League currently stands, was infested by subterranean termites and could not be saved. That building and the back end of the theater building were built as pavilions in 1925 that led to a band shell where the flagpole is now. HLT took on the what was at the time known as the Teen Town building, which is actually two buildings. One was the pavilion that was built in 1925. The auditorium was built as USO Club in 1942, and our stage addition was completed in 1988. The original structure, the 1925 and 1942, were actually being considered for demolition by the city because of lack of use and maintenance. Those
You have about
buildings...
10 seconds.
Pardon me?
You have 10 seconds.
Okay. We'd like you to consider maybe amending the RFP to allow a longer term for the lease. We don't quite understand why it's only 12 months.
Okay, thank you.
I'll tell you my perspective on it. I think that we talked about 12 months because we aren't sure the direction of the waterfront. And I don't want to lock someone into a long-term deal if we don't really know what our plan is going to be there yet. I think it's the same concept as the Magnolia building or the Visual Arts Center. I can't remember the name.
Yes, sir. Come on up.
I understand the concern. I spent 30 years working for the CRA, and we put together the original plan for that complex down there, which we called a cultural center. It gradually became something more than a cultural center, and that's understandable as well. There were a number of options in the waterfront district plan that this CRA put forward to you that included that building remaining in place as well as making it go away. I don't know that what ultimately the CRA is going to do or how they're going to be able to afford what they're going to do. But if you're looking at letting the building sit there empty at the expense of the city, with only a 12-month option, that's kind of what you're looking at. Whereas somebody who comes in and leases it, if we are able to get a longer term on the lease, we would be paying the insurance on the building, paying all the maintenance, and making improvements on the building. So you need to look at both options.
I have a question. I don't know if this is the time for it, but what were the Highlands Little Theater? What were your plans for the Moda building, or is that another discussion?
I can mention it very briefly. If we submit a proposal, which we will not be doing if it's only 12 months, it's not worth our while. We're bursting at the seams. We've got 2 theaters in place right now. We're selling out our shows. We're bringing people into the downtown. And we have a summer children's program that we're having trouble accommodating now. We had over 80 kids involved in that program this last summer. We could use that building for classrooms. We could use it for rehearsals, small rehearsal space as well. And it allows us to expand our educational program, something we've been wanting to do for some time, but we simply do not have the space to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee. You have 3 minutes.
Gentlemen, ladies, Bobby Lee with the Sebring Historical Society, and with the city of Sebring, of course, as a member of the city at least. I would like to wholeheartedly support the comments just made by Mr. P. Pollard. However, I don't agree that they should get the building.
Well, the comment was made for anybody.
I understand, which is why I'm following up, so you'll know that there's more than one entity that's interested in the building and for a longer term. I'll give you a flavor. He gave you a snippet of what they would like to do. I'll give you the primary uses that we would have. Create a gallery telling the history of the 12 hours of the Sebring race. Incorporate a new museum section to highlight specific Sebring and related items. We have lots and lots of items from Sebring. We even have an original power plant engine that works. Nobody sees it because it's buried in the archives. We would host traveling exhibits. We can't do that the way we are now. We would have, of all things, a fully staffed genealogy department. Many of you may know that we've inherited, or at least were given on a permanent loan, all of the genealogy documents from Lake Placid that were being held by the Daughters of the Confederacy. Every single state is represented in those genealogy reports, and hundreds of documents and books and families' histories. We even have 200 from Highlands County alone, the families that go back. Take the McClellans that owned the land that these two are working on. Much of it, almost all of Kissimmee Island belonged to them back in those days. We would also utilize the motives of fundraising revenue, because nobody gives us money just automatically. We have to go out and figure ways to support our missions. Historic lecture series are out there all over the place. We've only had a few, and would be able to bring those in. We'd have a place to put them. A lunch and learn series. We've had several of those, but again, we haven't been able to do those in our museum as such, because you can't really have people sitting around eating much at a museum. A biannual rummage sale. Good grief, we got over $3,000 just from our 2 times in 1 year rummage sale. That was a lot of money for us. We also have our monthly spaghetti dinners. So we need to be able to continue our outreach in the community, and we do that through a variety of different ways, including our donuts on Wednesday. You'll notice I asked for more time because I got 2 topics.
I know, but our thing says 3 minutes.
You're not going to give me the extra time for the other topic.
No, we say 3 minutes. If anybody wants to ask you some questions, they can do that.
Well, I'll put the last one up and use more than my 10 seconds. We've also been asked to host an African museum, African art, historical art. I don't know yet whether it's American African art or if it's just African art. And there would be willing to go upstairs, which means we need to have the money to be able to build out the escalator or elevator, because people can't just do it otherwise. Lastly, the other point was, or other 3 minutes, we're having a Pioneer Day at the fairgrounds on the 21st of October. Some of you know about it, many of you don't. It's going to be bigger than we thought right now. All of the county offices are going to be there. Many of the students are going to have, the clubs are going to be there. We've got all kinds of vendors and food people and on and on and on. It's going to be quite interesting. Many of the churches will be there and others. We'd like for you guys to show up.
Okay.
I already know she's going to be there.
I certainly will.
And Kathy, of course.
Thank you. Okay, where are we at? Okay, we got business from the audience. City attorney,
Nothing further, sir.
city administrator. Nothing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's Kathy.
Councilors for the payment of bills, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and Harrison seconded. If everybody's okay with us paying the bills, Kathy, you can call the board.
Bishop.
Yes.
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 Bill.
Yes.
Yes.
And just wanted to mention the final public hearing on the budget will be this Thursday at 5:15. Okay.
Are we all done?
Adjourned.
Meeting's adjourned. I brought my papers tonight. I'm ahead, so.